Good evening and welcome to our Back to School Facts First Town Hall. We're taking your questions about the school reopening process here in New York and getting answers straight from the experts.
According to guidance from the governor, schools will be allowed to reopen in the fall, but it will be up to each school district to choose its own reopening plan. Districts are required to hold 3 to 5 public meetings with parents before next Friday and a meeting with teachers. Districts must also post their remote learning plans online, along with their plans for COVID-19 testing and tracing for students and staff. Joining us tonight to take your questions on these topics and more, we have Dr. Michael Mendoza, Monroe County's Commissioner of Public Health, Dr. Leslie Myers-Small, the Rochester City School Superintendent, and Dr. Stephen Cook, a pediatric specialist with the University of Rochester Medical Center. I want to thank all of you for joining us. Before we get to the questions, we do want to give Dr. Mendoza, our community's medical point person in this fight, an opportunity to start things off with a message to you. Dr. Mendoza.
Well, thank you, Adam. Thank you, Maureen, and all of you here at WROC-TV for inviting me to join in this very important conversation tonight. I also want to thank and acknowledge my colleagues here tonight, Superintendent Myers-Small and Dr. Steve Cook, two individuals whom I've gotten to know especially well in recent months as we've prepared for what is perhaps one of the most difficult challenges this pandemic has presented to us so far, the challenge of reopening our schools safely. I also want to thank and acknowledge the many families, parents, and students who are watching tonight. Families who are experiencing a whole range of emotions that all come from the same place, the desire to do what is best for our children, their education, their mental health, and ultimately our future. I also want to call out our teachers and staff, educators who care deeply about the what and the how of ensuring our children are learning and remain as safe as possible. Your input has been valuable, and it will be especially so in the weeks and months to come. And while there remains much uncertainty, tonight, all things considered, I want to reassure you that our community is in a very good place. We announced the first case of COVID-19 in Monroe County exactly 5 months ago today. Within a couple of days, we learned of our second case, this one the result of community spread, which prompted our schools to undertake the unthinkable and to close a few days later. Since then, our community has done a tremendous job of flattening the curve, bringing us to a point where the infection rate has remained under 1%, even as our community has reopened. Everyone watching tonight deserves credit for helping to make this happen. You stayed home when you had to, and as we have reopened, you have made face coverings, hand sanitizer, and physical distancing part of your routine. 10,000 of you picked up the phone when our contact tracers called, and you shared over 87,000 responses with the Rock COVID symptom tracker in the last week alone. It took our entire community working together to put us in perhaps the best position imaginable to even entertain the prospect of reopening schools. And for all of this, I am deeply grateful. Tonight, I am asking us to keep it up, to remain vigilant, to remember that now is not the time that we let our guard down. Like before, how we come together in the weeks to come will determine not only if our schools can open, but if they can stay open. It was hard enough to close our schools the first time, and the last thing anyone wants to do is to have to do so again. So as we discuss reopening schools tonight, please keep in mind that this is not just about our kids and teachers. It is in fact about all of us, pitching in to keep our kids, teachers, families, and entire communities safe. We are in this for the long haul. We are learning as we go. I am grateful to be in a community that understands this, and I am optimistic that if we continue to work together, the next few months will stand as yet another example of our resilience as a community and our commitment to one another. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mendoza. And because you're warmed up, we're going to direct the first question to you. I wanted to get your thoughts on the variety of district plans for reopening right now. And Erica on Twitter did reach out to me just a few minutes ago, and she said, when you ask this question, also ask him about a new study out of the University of Florida that suggests the virus could be carried in aerosols.
Well, thank you for that question. The reality is that every school district is different. Each of our communities, each of the parents and students that these districts serves is different. And so it makes sense for the districts to have somewhat of a different read on the guidelines. That being said, we're all working off the same playbook. We're all working off guidelines that are intended to keep our parents and our students and our community safe. And so while you will see some variations that really stem from, different details around different buildings and districts and so forth, we're all working off the same guidelines, and that is to undertake all of the principles that we've been talking about for months to keep all of our kids safe. Now, this new study about aerosolization of the virus is something that we've been looking out for. The fact of the matter is, even though there has always been a possibility that aerosol spread has been in the cards, so to speak, we also know that the primary mode of transmission for this is through respiratory secretions that are expelled from people who are coughing, breathing, talking, or singing. I mean, that's the reality of the primary mode of transmission. So while this does introduce a new wrinkle into our understanding, I do think that the primary way that we've been progressing all along still remains, is that we've got to keep that 6-foot distance whenever possible, and then wear our mask when we can't.
All right, Dr. Mendoza, thank you. And we're going to get a few more specifics now. Our next question for Superintendent Leslie Myers-Small. Christina Higley is asking what a hybrid model will look like. Will it be different district to district, or is there a uniform model that most districts are going to try to follow? Dr. Small, the city school district, for example, has a hybrid plan. Can you explain what it is and how it is different, if any, from other district plans?
Sure, thank you for that question. And I think that's a question that a lot of parents and caregivers certainly want to know. So when we think about the hybrid model, it really does vary. And as Dr. Mendoza shared, we are all operating off the same playbook, the same set of guidelines, but the way that each school district interprets those guidelines certainly are different. And what determines that? Many, many things. Certainly the number of Chromebooks or laptops or other devices that you have available, the ability and the comfort level of teachers to be able to teach in a remote environment, the size of the classrooms, etc. So there are many, many variables that go into that. And I think that is really the beauty of being able to have that ability to look at those guidelines and to ensure that you are following them, but then to meet the needs of your respective communities in your school district. I'm a member of the Monroe County Council of School Superintendents. I'm a member of the Big Five. I'm a member of the Council of Great City Schools. So certainly we are talking with one another regularly online in Zoom meetings and other venues online to determine what the best practices are and to really try and figure out how can we do this best. We know that online learning is certainly difficult, and districts across the country, but particularly in Monroe County, had to quickly pivot on March 13th, and many schools were just not accustomed to delivering instruction online. So it certainly was, at times, a bumpy process. It's very complex. But when you think about the hybrid model, you want to ensure that you are doing what's best for your school community. Right now in Rochester, our hybrid model is such where students in pre-K through 4, students in specialized services, so students with disabilities, are in a hybrid model where we're looking at Monday and Tuesday, and then the other 3 days would be asynchronous remote learning, and then the other 50% of that class would be Thursday, Friday. And again, it really determines on very specific dynamics and needs that exist in your school community. What I think is important for parents and caregivers to understand is that it's so important for you to communicate. Our plans, all of our district plans, are uploaded to our websites, and please take a look at that and to see how your child, whatever grade level they are in, what does that plan mean particularly for them? Reach out to the principal of the school and make sure that you are informed. As it was noted at the beginning, we are required to have 3 to 5 parent discussion sessions. Rochester City School District is a part of the Big Five, so we are required to have 5. I am pleased to say that before that expectation came from Governor Cuomo. We were in the process of putting that together. And in the Rochester City School District, our first parent meeting is actually this Saturday, August 15th, from 1 to 2:30 p.m. And because we know parents have varied schedules and have varied needs, we have scheduled those meetings in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, and on weekends. So we want to make those available. We want parents to really have conversations with us, and our Office of Parent Engagement has done a nice job of setting those up and making that available. But the key is really communication and making sure that parents are comfortable and understand what the requirements are of their specific school district. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Myers-Small. We're going to direct our next question to Dr. Stephen Cook. Doctor, a lot of eyes have been on Israel because they sent kids back to school recently, and afterwards they did see an uptick in COVID-19 cases. Do you think we're going to see that here? And I'm going to add this on. Kate reached out to me online and asked me how many students per 100 would have to contract COVID for you to think a school or district should go fully online. I'm not sure if that is the proper metric to look at, but that was her question. So Dr. Cook, you can take it from here.
Thank you very much, Adam. I think it's really important to understand what is happening in other countries, look at what their case rates are, but also what their culture is like. So in going back to school, what is the use of public transportation versus busing? What are their meal plans? What is the size of the classroom? So some countries have had spikes, some countries haven't. And I think what we have to understand is for our community, our rates are extremely low. We've worked very hard to get here. We're doing the right things. And so I think sticking to that will be really important. The question of number of cases, I'd actually like Dr. Mendoza to take a shot at, because it ends up being a bit more of the prevalence within a school or community and what the density is. So I think the problem is that there probably is no one specific answer, and it'll really depend on what the school is able to respond to. So given that, I think there's no real specific number for a single school to close down, and it's going to depend on how quickly they can contact trace and really work with the county in terms of following up on cases and who needs to be isolated.
Dr. Mendoza, I am going to toss things over to you. Dr. Cook was just saying every area is different. And going back to Kate's question about how many kids per 100 would it take to close down a school or a school district, what type of measurement are you looking at when it comes to that decision?
So that's a really tough question, and we've been entertaining very tough questions all along. And the reality with this is that there is no single metric that will tell us the full picture of what's going on in a zip code, in a school district, or in fact this entire community. And so at the point when we are entertaining the first positive infection that we notice in a school, we're going to be looking at a number of things. First of all is the outcome from case investigation. When our team interviews the relevant parties in that classroom or that building, as it were, the extent to which we are able or unable to trace where the infection came from and to whom that infection may be spread will change our guidance and ultimately our recommendations to that school. The other major factor that will come to bear on this is the prevalence rate in the community. Right now it's very low, and so if that continues, we are going to have to see a very high prevalence in a particular school to want to close that school down. But if the community prevalence increases to the point that any number of infections in a school is enough to give us concern, then we might have a lower threshold for wanting to close an entire building down. Certainly we want to avoid that. And the way we avoid that is by continuing to undertake all of the precautions that we've been talking about. But at the end of the day, when it comes to evaluating what to do with a classroom, with a building, or with a district, it's going to come down to factors that we will learn about as that investigation takes place.
Very good. Dr. Mendoza, thank you. Dr. Cook, thank you. And Superintendent Myers-Small, thank you. We've got a lot of questions to get to, so we're going to be right back. Our Back to School Facts First Town Hall continues right after this break.
Now the wait is almost over as the Bills begin to take the field.
Yeah, it's not exactly full tackle, but it is the closest thing to football we've seen since January. We'll hear the players think about it.
Tomorrow at 9 on Channel 8 WROC.
Choose a school where the arts come alive, where science and technology thrive, to create something extraordinary. No matter which path you choose, GCC gives you the tools to start your next journey. Because when you choose GCC, your time is now.
Your favorite food is back. St. Joseph's Ukrainian Catholic Church is celebrating its 48th annual Ukrainian Festival Food Drive-Thru this weekend in Irondequoit. Support your local community and enjoy the best combo plates in town this weekend, Saturday and Sunday.
The Hyundai Epic Summer Sales Event means the lowest prices of the year at Vision Hyundai. Drive a new Elantra or the all-new Venue for $189 a month with 0 down, or an all-wheel drive Tucson for $229 a month. Elantra and Venue $189, Tucson $229. All come with 3 years free maintenance with America's best warranty. 10 years, 100,000 miles.
Make the Vision decision. Vision Hyundai.
Destination New York Summer Travel Guide.
Hi folks, Aaron Johnston. There's never been a better time to enjoy the great outdoors in the comfort and safety of your very own RV. No matter the budget, Johnston RV has the right RV to suit your individual needs. From the most basic tent camper for just the two of you to the largest motorhome for the entire family, to everything in between. Come see us today in Webster and Palmyra and jrvcountry.com.
Johnston RV.
It's time to lock in your summertime special pricing with Quality Homes of Rochester before the season passes you by. Get a complete new roof for as little as $49.90. Vinyl siding starts at $59.90. A full house of vinyl replacement windows for as low as $41.90. Quality Homes can reno a kitchen or bathroom, finish your basement. Financing options available. Payments start as low as $49 a month. Ken McClure and his team want to get your summer home improvement project booked today. So call Quality Homes of Rochester now. 429-5400, qualityhomesrochester.com.
When it comes to your children's education, choose St. Ambrose Academy. We are committed to all-day, all-week, on-site school learning with small classroom sizes for all grades, pre-K through 5th grade. Enroll today at stambrose.academy.
Channel 8 is getting a bigger block of fun. More Jeopardy at 10. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire at 10:30. Followed by The Price is Right at 11. The Game Show block premieres August 31st on Channel 8 WROC.
And welcome back, everyone. We are continuing with our town hall facts first as we think about going back to school and prepare for that reality. Our next question is again for Monroe County Health Commissioner Dr. Michael Mendoza. We did speak about community prevalence of this disease and how that impacts schools, Doctor. But here's another question for you. Are there some school districts or some areas of Monroe County that concern you more than others? In other words, are we seeing more cases of COVID-19 in some parts of Monroe County than others, or is it evenly spread?
Well, thanks for that question. And this is a question that we will learn more about as the weeks and months go by. You know, we know that there are zip codes in our community where there are disproportionately higher rates of infection. But predominantly speaking, we've only been testing adults by and large to date. And so we don't yet know is what this will look like as schools reopen and what that rate might look like among the school-aged population. So there's a lot more that we have to learn. That being said, I am concerned about all of our districts. Right now, even though we have different rates of infection in different zip codes and presumably in different school districts, there's nothing in the plans that I've read so far that gives me concern that any school district is worse off than the rest. I think all of our districts have been working very diligently to develop a plan that makes sense. And honestly, the most important feature of these plans is cooperation on the part of the community. You know, the most important last line or first line of defense that we have is whether we are looking at our children and each other and making sure that we're taking our appropriate precautions and not going to school or to work when we're ill. You know, when the school districts, and they all have plans to screen their children every day before they go to school, I want to encourage all of our parents to take that very seriously, because that is the last line of defense to prevent an infection from being introduced into our schools. And so right now we have the luxury of having very low rates across the community. And that being said, the greatest risk is introducing a positive case into a school and causing an outbreak. So at this point, our most important next step is to take care of one another and to undertake all of the precautions that we've been talking about.
Very good, Dr. Mendoza. We're going to head over now to our CSD Superintendent, Leslie Myers-Small, once again. Here's what Rochester Teachers Association President Adam Urbanski had to say recently when we asked him about reopening.
I think it would make more sense to postpone any at-school, in-person instruction until we can look a family in the face, a parent in the face, and say to them, your child will be safe. Nobody can truthfully assure parents right now that their children will be safe. This is not ready for prime time. We should do it right rather than right away. There's nothing sacred about September. There's something sacred about life.
So, Superintendent, I've heard from many parents outside of RCSD as well, and teachers expressing the same sentiment. At the same time, I'm hearing from parents and teachers saying we want the kids back in class. So I want to get your response to this kind of plea.
Sure. So first and foremost, I think it's really important for people to understand that Adam Urbanski and I, Dr. Urbanski and I, have a very collaborative relationship. We have quickly become acquainted since my start on May 19th. And so we are in constant contact with one another, and we are communicating very regularly. I think I'm certainly listening. I've listened to him and his team. And so this is an ever-evolving process. We're reviewing data. We're certainly looking and learning from other school districts. And what I think is really important, and I've said this from the beginning of time since we've had these conversations about school reopening, the Rochester City School District is a different entity for many obvious reasons and maybe not so obvious. Certainly our size is different from the rest of our Monroe County school districts. The fact that many of our students do rely on transportation to get to school, and they are not, many of our students are not dropped off, or we don't have that option to say if we were in person that they would be dropped off. And we certainly can't ignore the poverty, the concentrated poverty that exists in Rochester. So we are continuing to talk. I know that there's a frustration. I've been very, very concerned about the needs of certain students, our younger students and our students with disabilities. But this is a conversation that is very open, that's very collaborative, and I completely understand what Dr. Urbanski, who represents our over 3,000 teachers in Rochester. But this is what every single superintendent is grappling with across the county, across the state, and across the nation. So I think what's key is for superintendents to continue to have those open conversations, and knowing that plans could evolve is certainly something that we know is on the table. But it's very key for us to stay open, and I am getting many, many emails from parents and from teachers, but as Adam said, that we have diametrically opposed opinions about this, and then we have everything in between. We have some families that are saying, please, please, completely keep school closed, don't reopen, be completely remote. And then we have other parents who are saying, please, we want to come to school. We want our children to have those personal interactions. So it's a complex decision, and I think what's key is that I continue to be very thoughtful, as well as my other superintendent colleagues.
All right, Dr. Myers-Small, thank you very much. Let's turn to Dr. Cook now. Dr. Cook, Ashley Ladijas is a local teacher and worries about bringing COVID-19 home to her elders, and I'm guessing many teachers worry about that. How concerned should they be about bringing the disease home with them? What can they do to minimize the risk?
Well, I think it's really important to understand what we're all being exposed to and how we have to control those situations. So doing the things that we've repeatedly said is going to be repeated. Washing our hands, not touching our face, use social distancing as much as possible, wearing masks as much as possible. When it comes to elderly or individuals in our home who who are susceptible, it's really important for them to maintain social distance even more. So when caring for others, it's really important, are they people who are in your home, are they people that you're going to visit, and what additional steps you can take to help them. As far as kids, one of the questions that comes up is, do kids spread the same? And there's a very different biology here. Children under 10, because that's where the data seems to cut it, seem not to spread the virus as much, maybe 75% as much as adolescents. But adolescents do seem to spread it in very similar rates to adults. Now, this mostly comes from data in other countries, but we are getting more and more data from our country. So I think it's always important to constantly go back and look at that and understand that. That said, we're still going to stick with these same plans. We have a very, very low rate in our community, and by practicing these behaviors and continuing to do this, that's what's going to keep us safe. So I think everyone has to be aware of their environment and what they're exposed to, and working with their employers, with their colleagues, of what's going to be the best choice for them. But let's be assured that we've worked real hard, we have a low rate, and that we need to continue to be diligent in our steps in maintaining these same behaviors.
All right, Dr. Cook, thank you. And we're back with an interview with New York State's Interim Commissioner of Education right after the break. Stay right there.
Being part of a community means we're all connected. That's why RTS is going the extra mile with enhanced cleaning, social distancing reminders, and masks for our customers. So you have a safe way to stay connected to the people and places that matter.
Looking for a job? Check out the new WROC Job Board. Great opportunities based on your resume. Apply in one click. Get alerts, notifications for new postings, and salary information all in one place. Go to rochesterfirst.com and find your next job today.
They haven't quite reinvented the wheel, but wait till you see what they've done with bikes. See the all-new e-bikes at Burt's Bikes and Fitness. They ride like standard bikes, but have a power assist for when you need it. Keep up with other riders. Tackle hills you might not have tried before. Ride farther than ever. Get back that old wind in your hair feeling. Try out an e-bike at Burt's. Burt's Bikes and Fitness, Orchard Park, Tonawanda, Williamsville, Henrietta, and Webster.
If you knew there was a company with the most comfortable mattress costing up to 60% less than comparable brand name mattresses, wouldn't you check them out? Now you can. Jamestown Mattress, built better for less.
Jamestown Mattress.
But we take these seriously. Tornado warnings are a very serious affair.
Count on Chief Meteorologist Eric Sneidel and the News 8 Weather Team. On air, online, and on your phone.
If these scales could talk, they'd tell you of the ethics that 4 generations of my family has lived up to in presenting our diamonds and gemstones. They tell you that each diamond is weighed and graded individually, so you know exactly what you're getting. They tell you that when we purchase a diamond with a GIA grading report, we make sure the diamond matches or exceeds the grading on the report. They tell you that Reed's Jewelers has put ethics before profit since 1912. If these scales could talk, they'd humbly ask for the chance to be your jeweler.
Break free and get out of the house to make some lasting memories with the help from Wilkins RV. It's time to take control of your summer in an RV. Visit us at any one of our 4 great locations or shop us online at wilkinsrv.com.
Heading out for a road trip this weekend? Get your complete Destination New York travel forecast at rochesterfirst.com. Sponsored by the Jewelry and Coin Exchange.
So you don't know how to play Big Brother?
Holy cannoli.
Well, we've assembled a team of all-stars to teach you.
Let's go, baby.
Make secret alliances with your new friends.
It's savage.
Don't be afraid of romance.
I'm like, yeah.
Win competitions.
My mind is like,
Blindside so-called friends who have secretly betrayed you.
Ain't nobody afraid of you. Ain't nobody afraid of you.
All on a 24/7 live feed to the world.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
New Big Brother All-Stars tonight at 8/7 Central on CBS.
Welcome back to our Back to School Facts First Town Hall. We'll hear more from our guests in studio in a few moments. But first, News 8's Mark Gruba has this interview with the woman who oversees the work of more than 700 school districts across the state, the Interim Commissioner of Education.
I am with Shannon Tahoe, the Interim Commissioner of Education for the state of New York. Thank you for a few minutes, Commissioner Tahoe.
Thank you for having me today.
Obviously an important conversation here. The first question is about in-person instruction. Do you believe that it can be done safely here in New York for students and educators?
I do think it can be done safely, but I think it's going to depend on each district's plan. We've asked each district in the state to submit a reopening plan to make sure that the health and safety of our students is, obviously that's paramount. So with these plans, they're going to be looking at their enrollment, the needs of their students, the ability of their staff to perform in-person instruction, to make sure that there's appropriate social distancing and that students are safe when they're at schools. This is a fundamental undertaking that's taking an enormous amount of work, but I do believe it can be done safely if the district has the appropriate plans in place.
In our region, teachers with some unions have expressed concerns about going back. What do you say to those teachers that are unsure about going back into the building to educate our students?
I think really that I would just say that the teachers should be working with their school districts, communicating with their superintendents and letting them know their feelings on this issue, and making sure that they're involved in their reopening plans so they can ensure that they too feel that the district has a strong plan in place to ensure their safety if in-person instruction is needed in September.
As you're well aware, parents have similar concerns. These are their children after all. What's the message for parents as we move toward reopening in the fall?
I think parents, I too have 3 school-age children, 1 in high school, 1 in middle school, and 1 in elementary school. And I would say, just like myself, I've been reading through my district's reopening plan, making sure that I know what's going to happen in the fall, so I feel like I can, safely bring my kids back. I think every parent needs to make their own decision on what they want to do with their child in September. Some districts have hybrid models where they're allowing in-person instruction and a remote option. Or a parent can always homeschool their child if they feel like that's the appropriate mechanism. But this really is a parent decision, and they need to make sure that they feel like their child is going to be safe and supported when they're at school in September.
From a curriculum standpoint, we talk about a hybrid model, both in person and remote, and then students who will be educated entirely remotely. Can they get the same quality education students have gotten in years past?
I do believe that districts need to do everything they can to ensure that they're receiving instruction that as closely resembles as what we had last year and in prior years past. Districts are really, sitting down and reviewing their curriculum instructional models with their teachers, talking through how they're going to try to provide the best quality instruction moving forward. We have encouraged districts to really dig deeply to say, to make sure that they're doing everything they can to provide students with the best instruction as possible. But we all know that these are ever evolving circumstances, and I do think that this school year is going to be extremely challenging. We don't know what's going to happen as the school year evolves. So school districts are going to have to put multiple mechanisms in place to try to provide the best quality instruction that they possibly can.
Testing is one aspect, of course, of education. Do you have a feel at this point for what's going to happen with the Regents exams?
This is something I hear every day. I'm getting questions across the state on whether or not state assessments or Regents exams will be administered this year. Obviously, the state assessments require a federal waiver from the federal government. That's something that the Regents, if feel like as the school year progresses, that those need to be suspended or modified in any way. The Board of Regents is committed to doing that, but right now it's premature at this point when the school year hasn't even began. So I think this is something that we're looking at. It's just not time yet to make those decisions.
I want to finish with a thought about the students in this equation. Of course, the adults in their lives, the parents and the educators are working so hard to get this right for them. They've largely been voiceless throughout this process, and yet they're central to what we're talking about. Many are filled with anxiety. They don't know what's going to happen, and that lack of knowing creates uncertainty. What is your message for youngsters who are 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, even 17 as they go into the fall?
I think that our students, we had a student forum on this exact issue and on the reopening of schools. And one of the things we heard across the board is how much our students miss their teachers, their mentors, their peers in their classrooms. One of the things that I would tell our students is, that their school leaders are doing everything they possibly can to make sure that their experience in the fall is similar to what they're normal or used to as possible. But this is going to be an ever-changing school year, and I think that it is difficult, and our students really need to be mindful that all of those in the educational community are really doing everything they possibly can to make sure not only that their academic needs are being met, that their social emotional needs are being met. I would tell our youngsters that they really need to think about how to help themselves too in this environment and work with their parents, making sure that they're actually doing all their assignments, they're logging on to their Zooms or webinars where their schools are holding them to make sure that they're actively engaged in their school community, and they need to take even a deeper role in their own education, even our little ones, making sure they're reading books for 20 minutes a day to make sure that they're getting those reading skills. We're all going to have to be doing more independently, me as a parent and my own 3 children. I think our own children are going to have to take more of an independent role in their own education. This is going to prepare them, hopefully, for even a brighter future when they have to go to college, and they're going to have to be, doing some of this on their own at that time, too. So really, I would say every person, whether it be the student, the parent, the educators, the teachers, the school leaders, everybody is going to have to collectively do everything they can this year to try to support our students to make sure that they have the best academic setting as possible when school resumes in the fall.
Commissioner Tahoe, we thank you for your time, and we wish you the best with this unprecedented challenge ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Admiral Maureen, let's send it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Mark. And our guests are in studio right now taking your questions tonight.
That's right. Coming up on this special Back to School Town Hall, I'm going to ask Dr. Mendoza what he thinks about flu season. What will happen when it arrives? Stay with us.
Salvatore's, our pepperoni don't social distance, but we do. Salvatores.com.
Donuts Delight at Empire and Culver, Rochester's finest donut.
Salvatore's full menu touchless delivery. Salvatores.com.
It's time to lock in your summertime special pricing with Quality Homes of Rochester before the season passes you by. Get a complete new roof for as little as $49.90. Vinyl siding starts at $59.90. A full house of vinyl replacement windows for as low as $41.90. Quality Homes can reno a kitchen or bathroom, finish your basement. Financing options available. Payments start as low as $49 a month. Ken McClure and his team want to get your summer home improvement project booked today. So call Quality Homes of Rochester now. 429-5400, QualityHomesRochester.com.
I'm Mike Palmieri, owner of Market View Liquor. Celebrate summer with great wines for great times. Quench your thirst with one of our crisp, refreshing white wines. We have the area's largest selection of wines to choose from. And nothing says summer better than a glass of elegant white wine from New York, Italy, Germany, or countless regions throughout the world. And at Market View Liquor, we have just the right wine for your next gathering. Come in and let us help you select the perfect summer wine. Market View Liquor, I-390 at Jefferson Road.
When it comes to your children's education, choose St. Ambrose Academy. We are committed to all-day, all-week, on-site school learning with small classroom sizes for all grades, pre-K through 5th grade. Enroll today at stambrose.academy.
Five Star Bank Digital Banking is an all-in-one financial tool that lets you bank virtually anytime, anywhere, any way you want. Get $250 with direct deposit when you open an account online. Five Star Bank, member FDIC.
We all know the importance of a healthy immune system. I'm always looking for something to help me stay healthy. Your Encore has vital nutrients to support your whole body, including your immune system.
Bioenergetic Your Encore supplies 100% of your daily vitamin C, a powerful antioxidant. And it supplies pure German creatine to every cell in your body, including those all-important T cells. These two powerful ingredients help you stay strong and support a healthy immune system.
Combining Your Encore with daily exercise helps keep your body strong. Now, I start every day with it. Your Encore restores energy at the cellular level for greater immune support. I've got to be strong. People depend on me. My mom uses it too.
Your Encore is available for just $29.99 a month. That's less than $1 a day to stay healthy and strong. Order now while supplies last.
Salvatore's, we wear our mask with you. I look better with mine. Salvatores.com.
Donuts Delight at Empire and Culver, Rochester's finest donut.
Salvatore's full menu touchless delivery. Salvatores.com.
Months are coming upon us here. This next question here for Dr. Mendoza. Winter months, we talk about flu season. So my question for you is this. When does flu season normally start in our area? And do you foresee a sharp rise in COVID cases in our area around that time?
Well, Adam, this is a question that we entertain every year, this time of the year. And the reality is every year when we look ahead, we really don't know when the flu season will begin. We know that typically it begins really in earnest in late October, early November, and then in full force in December. But the reality is, even though it's very tempting to try to compare one flu season to the next, one thing is for certain, every flu season is different. The added wrinkle, of course, this year is that we have COVID-19, and we are undertaking some very unprecedented precautions. And so the jury is still out as to what will the impact of all of these precautions be on the onset of the flu season. We are right now to be thinking about all of the respiratory viruses that we know are far more common in the winter cold months when the air is dry and much colder. But the reality is we've never been through this before. And so what we can do right now is take precautions. The first and most important precaution that we can take around the flu is to get the flu shot. The flu vaccine is not yet available in our community, but when it is available, we will have recommendations from the Department of Public Health on how and when to get the flu shot. But the bottom line is to get your flu shot, because that will be the most important intervention that you can undertake to prevent getting the flu and sharing it with other people. We also know that the precautions that we are taking to minimize the spread of COVID-19 are very likely to work to prevent or minimize the spread of the flu and vice versa. In late March, when we undertook all of the stay-at-home and social distancing precautions, the flu season essentially stopped in its tracks. And so although the jury is still out as to what will happen in the coming months, I think we know right now all of the precautions that we do need to start considering as these colder months are on the horizon.
All right, Dr. Mendoza, thank you very much. We have a question now for RCSD Superintendent Leslie Myers-Small. Dr. Small, many parents from many districts were not pleased with the online education that their kids received in the final months of the school year. What work is being done to improve online learning going into September?
Thank you for that question, and that's one that we deal with often. I just need us to just rewind a little bit and be mindful of what happened. On March 13th, 2020, that was the last day that students in Monroe County basically attended school. And so school districts across the county needed to quickly pivot and not only determine how instruction would be best delivered remotely, but they also had to make sure that nutrition was taken care of, so meals, and to really ensure the health and the safety of students. So when we're talking specifically about fortifying online or remote instruction, that is something that is critically important. And so I know, again, speaking with my colleagues in Monroe County, ASIs, or Assistant Superintendents for Instruction, have been working very collaboratively together across the country, looking at best models, research best practices, and just learning from other school districts who do it well has been really the key to moving forward. But what I want to share with parents is that we really have two types of online learning that can occur. There's synchronous and asynchronous. So synchronous is in lockstep, where the educator is delivering the instruction, and asynchronous is where a student could do that more independently during their own time. We're trying to make sure that there's flexibility because we know that parents may have multiple children in the home, and there may be difficulties getting online or just even helping their child maneuver through the work. But we've been working very diligently in Rochester as well as districts across the county to fortify that. But I think what's important to just reiterate, it's certainly not an excuse, but school districts really had to shift that brick and mortar attendance to delivering that solely online, and that does take time. And I think as we were waiting to hear, and it was great to see my former boss, Interim Commissioner Tahoe, working on the state side, we were really trying to provide resources to the 700+ school districts, because that was the key issue that school districts were dealing with. The other thing that I think it's important just to put out there that I know is probably obvious, but when you look at some of the remote areas across the state and even in our county, that connectivity could be an issue. So it's not just focusing on the instruction, it's making sure also that there is a device that a student can work on, and then making sure that you have that power source, the internet, to make sure that they're doing that. So we are continuing to move forward. We are continuing to fortify and working with different educators in our district to make sure that parents are not displeased.
Very good, Superintendent. We thank you. The next question is for Dr. Cook. We heard President Trump speak on this topic the other day, the topic that you touched on just a little bit ago about how kids interact with COVID-19. We're going to play that soundbite from the president now.
Young people are almost immune. If you look at the percentage, it's a tiny percent of 1%. It's a tiny percent of 1%. So we have to have our schools open. We have to protect our teachers. We have to protect our elderly, but we do have to have our schools open.
Dr. Cook, I wanted to get your thoughts on that particular thought.
Well, one of the most important things to understand is that children in this country have been at home. They've not been interacting with large populations or in large groups for the vast majority of the pandemic in this country. So to say that children are immune really is not based on reasonable facts. Children get the disease. They don't get as severe cases that we see in adults, and we are just getting a sense of how many cases children are getting. Because when you also look at the data, I think there's been probably 300,000 cases in children now confirmed in the U.S., with a significant portion of those coming in just the last 2 weeks of July. So we do have to be aware that children will get this disease, teenagers will get this disease, and not to blow it off. But at the same time, we've worked extremely hard. We have a very low transmission rate in this community, and that's what's really important, because that is what allows us to open schools, to have more activities going on. So it's important to stick with what's been working, but to think children are not going to get this disease is not really based in good facts, because even if they don't get that sick, they still continue with the transmission, and then we got to try to stop and limit transmission.
Dr. Cook, thank you for that answer. Our Back to School Facts First Town Hall is not over yet. We have a lot of information to get to. Some final questions for our guests after this.
We want you to know that we will always be here for you and your family.
Using our technology so we can protect you and your family no matter where we are. For a free consultation, call 262-COMP today.
Is credit card debt keeping you up at night? Are you struggling to make monthly payments and getting nowhere? If you owe $10,000 or more, here's good news. Freedom Debt Relief is ready to help you to get out of debt so you can get on with your life.
Being almost out of debt feels fantastic. I feel like it's like a new life. It's like a clean slate.
Over 500,000 Americans have chosen Freedom Debt Relief to consolidate their debt, reduce what they owe, and eliminate debt faster.
Find out how quickly you could be debt-free. Call 1-844-967-0625.
The best thing about this program is that it would have taken me 15 years to get out of debt. With Freedom, it's only going to take me 3.
Don't spend one more sleepless night worrying about debt. Give Freedom Debt Relief a call and end your debt stress now.
Call 1-844-967-0625 to start eliminating your debt now. That's 1-844-967-0625.
They bring love and joy to our families, but their time with us is never long enough. And a decision of how you choose to remember them can be a difficult one. When it comes to pet cremation, Pets at Peace wants to make sure all of your options are presented to you. Whether you call us directly or ask us to work with your veterinarian, we will guide you through the process of compassionate pet cremation. It's about understanding and knowing that you have a choice. Pets at Peace by Harris Funeral Home, because your pet is part of the family.
Destination New York Summer Travel Guide.
Hi folks, Aaron Johnston. There's never been a better time to enjoy the great outdoors in the comfort and safety of your very own RV. No matter the budget, Johnston RV has the right RV to suit your individual needs. From the most basic tent camper for just the two of you to the largest motorhome for the entire family, to everything in between. Come see us today in Webster and Palmyra and jrvcountry.com.
Good evening, everyone. Happening right now, state lawmakers are reviewing New York's response to the COVID pandemic. Today's focus, hospitals across New York. While the state says it distributed 24 million pieces of PPE, lawmakers say frontline workers have still voiced concerns about having enough equipment. Those hearings will continue in Albany. Coming up at 11, one of the anchor stores at Pittsburgh Plaza is the latest company to file for bankruptcy amidst the pandemic. Eric?
Hard to argue with this forecast. This is good stuff. We're clear going into the night tonight. Perseid meteor shower again tonight once it gets dark. Go check that out. Back to 85 tomorrow. 80s holding tight into the weekend, and we're dry.
Our town hall continues now. We're going to play sound now from a parent and a student with two very different concerns. Let's take a listen.
I kind of think the kids need the socialization. They need that social interaction. You know, school is, to me personally, it's just as much about the structure as it is about the actual learning and what they come away with.
I'm very concerned because, you know, my school's very small. And so one of my concerns would just be that, like, okay, my friend gets COVID and we've all been together. You know, does the school shut down for 2 weeks? Do we all just go remote learning and then pick back up, like, after the 14 days? And then just like, well, what is that, you know, does everyone then have to get tested?
All right, so first, Dr. Mendoza, this question for you. Do you think a lack of socialization for kids who have stayed at home could have long-term negative consequences? And could you explain the testing and contact tracing and how it's going to work for schools?
So two very important questions. First of all, we know that school is not just about learning. It's also about the experience of learning. We know that our kids have gone through a very unprecedented 6 months. Nobody knows what the impact, both short-term and long-term, on our kids will be. And so I want to state it for the record right now, we need to look at this as a trauma in its own right. We do not know what will happen. We know what we are seeing now, and many parents have, very much like Ben has reported to us, very strong concerns about what the lack of socialization may have in terms of an impact on their children. And so when we go back to school, in whatever form that looks like, our first priority will be to check in on the mental health of our students, of their parents, of our teachers, of our educators, and all of the community, because this has been, in every sense of the word, an unprecedented period of time. And so as we do this, as we work together, as we understand and talk about and express our emotions to one another, it's a time for our community to come together and to listen to one another and to support one another and make sure that we were doing everything we possibly can as we get back to the mechanics of learning, that we also think about the emotions of learning. Now, as to the second question about what will happen in the event of seeing a COVID-positive individual in our schools, we all want to have a plan. I understand the uncertainty that parents are feeling, wanting to know exactly what will happen. But the reality is, in all honesty, what will happen will depend on what we learn and all of the circumstances that we will uncover in the process of investigating those first cases. Now, I will say that if we find a positive individual in a classroom, we are very likely to recommend to that school that we will want to close that classroom for at least 24 hours. The reason for that is because it will give our team some time in the health department to undertake the contact tracing process to identify who in that class may need to be quarantined and who may not need to be quarantined and who might be safe to go back to school. And it will also allow us to understand if there was any further spread in that building. Because if so, we will want to extend the contact tracing, potentially reach out to additional people to put them under quarantine, and so forth. So really, as much as we want to have a recipe, the reality is we won't really know until we get there. Now, as to the question of testing, somebody who tests positive will be under isolation for 10 days, and they will be able to be cleared from isolation and return to school once they have 3 days of no symptoms. And in the case of school, they will have to have a negative test result in order to return back to school, in addition to an evaluation from their doctor. Now, for people who are sent home for other reasons, it's a little bit more complicated, and we're in the process right now of ironing out all of those details. But suffice it to say, at the end of the day, we do not want to send anybody back to school who can pose a risk to any other students or teachers or to staff.
All right, Dr. Mendoza, thank you. We are quickly running out of time, but this is such an important question. We want to make sure that we do include this tonight. It is for Dr. Leslie Myers-Small. A question for you. We have heard this disease is impacting Black and brown communities disproportionately, which means RCSD could have the biggest challenge of all the districts. All of this, of course, while the district itself is suffering one of the biggest financial challenges in recent memory. Does the district have the resources to handle this extraordinary undertaking?
Thank you for that question as well. I'll start with an often overused saying, but I get by with a little help from my friends. I have been overwhelmed with the incredible philanthropy that has been directed toward the Rochester City School District. This news station and others have reported the generous donations that have come in relative to Chromebooks and us being able to obtain MiFis. We know that poverty certainly is an issue that we deal with in our school community of Rochester. There were some savings from schools going remote, so we were able to shift some of those resources. And we're just continuing to look at how we fortify, how we have our schools safe. But we have had extreme generosity directed towards our district. And we have other folks who are constantly reaching out to me, either via email or social media or calling me and saying, how can we help? Another overused phrase, but one that I think is very apropos for Rochester, is that it truly takes the entire village to support and raise children. And so, from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of the district, on behalf of our Board of Education, and certainly the 25,000 plus students that I'm responsible for serving, I thank our community for being extremely generous and supportive of our children.
All right, Dr. Leslie Myers-Small, thank you very much.
Absolutely, and we'd like to once again thank our guests, all three of them, for joining us this evening. Dr. Mendoza, Dr. Leslie Myers-Small, and Dr. Stephen Cook.